The way that we have conducted these ceremonies has changed dramatically in now the 57 times that someone up on the Capitol has taken the oath of office.
It's an unmistakable snapshot of American democracy. One American, a 35-word oath, and the world bearing witness to the start of a new presidency.
Help me God. Congratulations, Mr. President.
And, like the nation itself, the inauguration ceremony has changed since our first commander-in-chief, George Washington, raised his right hand and took the oath in 1789. In fact, the first ceremony was nowhere near Washington, D.C., but in New York City, the temporary capital.
Let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Until 1933, Inauguration Day was March 4th. But in order to shorten the time between Election Day and the new term, Congress changed the date to January 20th. And now, this is the 7th time the date has fallen on a Sunday, forcing planners to move the public ceremony to Monday. Beyond the ceremony, inaugural day parades have evolved to reflect a changing America. The first parade was essentially the equivalent of an 18th century flash mob. As George Washington made his way from his home in Mount Vernon to New York, local militias joined the journey, starting the tradition of public presidential display. In 1865, at President Lincoln's second inaugural ceremony, African Americans participated in the parade for the first time. And in 1917, women locked step in Woodrow Wilson's second inaugural parade, 2 years before they were allowed to vote. In 1949, Americans crowded around television sets to watch Harry Truman take the oath in the first televised ceremony. Security had noticeably changed in 1965, following the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Lyndon Johnson was the first president to ride in a bulletproof limousine to the ceremony. But in 1977, President Carter skipped his ride to become the first president to walk from the Capitol to the White House. 20 years later, the world logged on to watch President Clinton's inauguration, the first ever to be carried online.
William Jefferson Clinton.
In a post-9/11 world, inauguration security reached a new high in 2005 for President Bush's second swearing-in. Snipers and armored vehicles surrounded the event. And in 2009, 1.8 million people watched Barack Obama become the 44th president of the United States.
God bless the United States of America.
This position of inaugural poet is relatively new. It started back in 1961 when President Kennedy had tapped Robert Frost to deliver a poem, and since that time there have been 4 inaugural poets. Today's poet is Richard Blanco, and in this elite group he will be a standout because he is a civil engineer that decided to try his hand at writing a little bit later on in his life.
I always had a creative spirit that wasn't squashed.
Not afraid to admit that he is, in fact, a little nervous. He did share with me, though, when he was rehearsing over the weekend up there on the podium at the Capitol, he said that despite the fact that we see this expansive scenery and so many thousands of people up there, he said it's actually a very intimate setting and that it's very personal up there, and that helped kind of calm his nerves a little bit. He said he's ready to go, ready to deliver, obviously, the most important poem that he'll probably ever recite. For this Long Island winery, it was their privilege to be able to provide the wine that will be toasted by Congress and the President.
You're out on Long Island, you're swirling a Cabernet, and all of a sudden you get a phone call from the Secret Service saying, send us down 200 bottles?
Well, as the saying goes, things don't just happen in Washington, right? So Senator Schumer this year is chair of the inaugural committee, and there was a conversation, I believe, last fall at New York Farm Day, which is an event in Washington, about Schumer's desire to have New York State agricultural products and New York State wines served at the inauguration. And at some point last fall, I sent in samples of my wines, of Bedell Cellars wines, to Washington. I got a phone call, I believe it was last Monday, from one of Senator Schumer's aides saying, I just want to let you know that we've selected Bedell Sellers Merlot to serve at the inaugural luncheon. We packed it up in a brown FedEx box and shipped it to Washington.
You don't get any kind of special instructions from the Secret Service. You can't divulge a little bit about the secret.
Well, we had a special address to send the wines to. I don't know anything about the particular address.
Of course you don't. It might not even exist after Monday.
Right. And this wine has, as you'll see, a beautiful aroma, beautiful nose, and a beautiful tannin structure, and it pairs really well with the main course at the inauguration, which is a bison steak. And the response from our customers and the public has been really overwhelming, and we've received orders for the wine from, so far, 35 states around the United States. Probably all 50 by the time this is over.
Have you sat down and thought about the fact that you've got this bipartisan group, all three branches of the government, coming together, sitting down, literally breaking bread, and toasting on your hard work?
Every time I hear it phrased like you just did, I actually get goosebumps.
It's the wine.
We salute you, Mr. President.
Really, our nation's leaders sit down and say, okay, well, we've all had our disagreements and we had an election, and we're trying to pass legislation that we probably disagree on in many ways. But at this moment, we're all sitting down to put all that aside and toast really to the success of our nation. And it's a really incredible honor. And every time I think about it, I still get chills.
Well said, and certainly well deserved.
Thank
Trent
you.
Pressler, Bedell Sellers,
Thank you.
Continued success.